Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Okay, so again, happy you posted it and good to see everybody made it, even though with very little advertising goes into this. Somehow you network or you just know to check. So it's very nice to get together, the opportunities we have and reflect on the Dhamma. And this is, we're doing it by the calendar. Yeah, we're doing it by the moon. So it's going to happen regardless of what's going on in our life. And as it so happens at the monastery, we've just come through a kind of difficult weekend with a very mentally not well individual who showed up at the monastery and because we didn't know anything about him, said, okay, yeah, you can stay the night, and then quickly found out that was, he was not going to leave. He was not right. And this led to a very tense, 4 or 5 days for the people staying here because it just when somebody's not well and under the effect of certain drugs, you just don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. And so coming through that and now it's the opposita is like I thinking this morning like well what are we going to talk about and we didn't have like any like really juicy topic come up last Wednesday so it's on me to think of well what Dhamma should we discuss and of course all my mind is doing is just because we've just been through this wild roller coaster ride but as it so happened, part of our routine at the monastery is to cycle through chants. And every morning, based on the day of the week, we do a different important chant from the popular suttas that Buddhist monasteries usually chant. And this includes the Mangala Sutta, the Metta Sutta, the Ratana Sutta. It includes the quail and peacock protections, which are against fire and yeah, they're blessings meant to ward off fires, which I mean has theoretically worked so far. So we'll keep doing that every Wednesday. Also the Jaga Sutta, a wonderful sutta. It's not as well known, called the Banner Crest. It's a sutta about the standard, the flag that an army would fly, and the banner crest is meant to be what is the sort of rallying cry or the symbol that inspires meditators when they're in a situation that could cause their hair to stand on end and fill them with fear and doubt. And there's a reflection on the triple gem. Yeah. And yeah, so we cycle through these chants, and this morning we cycled through the Ratana Sutta, and this is one of the major suttas. And as far as suttas go that are chanted, the Ratana Sutta is probably one of the most chanted suttas, second probably only to the Metta Sutta, the Karaniya Metta Sutta. And so I thought, coincidentally. The Ratana Sutta has quite a history behind it, and what it's typically used for is for warding off disease, misfortune, and bad omens and bad spirits. Yeah. And that was when it was first used and what it tends to be used for. So it's used in like in your personal life or even societally, if you fear that negative forces are influencing the way things are going in your community or your country or the world, you might reflect on the Ratana Sutta. So I thought maybe tonight we could take a look at that sutta in its long form, its full form, and kind of step through it because people in the West might be aware that it's chanted. You might have even chanted it or heard it chanted. But it's not very often that you get to sort of be walked through it because there's a lot of interesting dhammas in there that are actually kind of deep and not easy to kind of tease the nuance out. But somebody who kind of does this for a living might immediately recognize some of those things and be able to point them out for you. If at any time you have any questions about the sutta, you can feel free to chime in. Don't raise your hand, I won't see it, but just speak up. And otherwise, we'll step through the sutta and we'll sort of look at what this important sutta refers to. Yeah. So the backstory behind the Ratana Sutta is that this was in the fifth year after the Buddha's enlightenment. So the Sangha is starting to get established. And shortly after the Buddha was enlightened, he went to the kingdom of Magadha, which is kind of the central Ganges River Valley kingdom that was headed by King Bimbisara. And King Bimbisara was already a fan of the Buddha before he was a Buddha. King Bimbisara famously offered to divide rulership of the country with the Bodhisatta because he was just so impressed with the Bodhisatta's like bearing when he came through Magadha. But the Bodhisatta said, look, I've got other things to do. I've already left one kingdom. I don't need another. So Bimbisara said, well, okay, look, if you do attain enlightenment, please come back and teach us. And so that's what the Buddha did. After he attained enlightenment, he came back to the kingdom of Magadha and he gave a sermon that helped King Bimbisara and 100,000 people attain stream entry. And so the Sangha is starting to get going. Yeah, it's been a number of years. There are arahants, there are non-returners, once returners, and stream enterers. There's a Sangha forming. They don't yet have a Vinaya, a code of rules, but it's made up of enlightened beings of the various levels. So they're all pretty well behaved. And the Sangha's and for that reason, the Sangha's in a pretty good state. Yes, it hasn't yet gotten big enough where like certain corruptions come in and people are like, what are these monks up to? That would come later. Yeah, but then north of the kingdom of Magadha, you have the Vajji Republic, and the Vajji Republic is usually pretty much mostly occupied by people called the Lichavis, and the Lichavis were funny, weird people with exotic tastes and known to be crude at times or aggressive. Um, and they had a king, but they're also sort of a republic. It's kind of fuzzy, like what actually how they ran things. I imagine they were all just such fierce and opinionated people that they had a king, but they didn't listen to him that much, is my assumption. And in the Republic of Vaji, you have the main city of Vesali, and this is where the Ratana Sutta will take place. So Vesali had just suffered from a famine, and because of the famine, many people had died. And following that, they didn't know what to do with the bodies, so they kind of took them outside the city gates and dumped them. Now, not the best sanitary policies, but the idea of sanitation is still in its infancy in 500 BC. So disease starts to arise. And based on the disease and the dead bodies and the foul humors and just the mind states of the people, negative spirits start to move in and take place and to occupy various places in the city. And this leads to further like lowering the vibes, the energy level in the city. And because of this, all sorts of disasters and, bad things are happening to the people. And they start to take notice. The people are getting sick, people are dying. It's just everything feels off. What could be the cause? Yeah. And now they decide, like they get amongst themselves and they decide, something that's actually very reasonable. They say, well, if things are going bad, it's probably our leader's fault. And if you look at how things are in the world today, that makes a lot of sense, yeah? When you have disease and famine and war and death, you can often look to the leader, and if the leader is corrupt, immoral, incompetent, that could be the condition for these things to arise. And so they're ready to kick out the king. I imagine his position is not very secure in this country anyway. But then they investigate him and they find that he's actually not really immoral or incompetent or anything. This isn't actually his fault. Yeah. And because of that, they're a bit stumped. Like, well, what do we do? And so they've got to turn to prayers and oblations and sort of ask the gods for mercy. Now, they have their priests, they have their Brahmin caste, but this is not it's not working. So they think we've got to get somebody with some spiritual power. Yeah, us normal guys are not enough. And they think to the various notable ascetics who were around at the time. There's six or seven of them who show up throughout the suttas, as these were heads of very large orders of ascetics. Um, but before any of them can combine, somebody says, to the south in the kingdom of Magadha, there is the Buddha, the Blessed One. And if anybody could help us with our plight, it would be him. And so they send runners down to Magadha to request that the Buddha come up and visit. And they go to King Bimbisara first, and King Bimbisara says, well, just take it straight to the Buddha. He'll know what's best. And the Buddha says, okay, yeah, I'll go visit Vesali. And King Bimbisara hears this and he gets together a crew and they clear the road and beautify it and set up rest houses all along the way for the Sangha. And then the Sangha sets out in force, heading for the town of Vesali. And as they arrive in the town of Vesali, the Buddha uh, tells Ananda, I'm going to recite for you a sutta, and I want you to go around the inner walls of the city and recite this sutta. And he gives him the Ratana Sutta, the Jewel Discourse. Ratana means jewel or gem. And Ananda fills an alms bowl with water, and he goes around the inside of the city with a bunch of attendants, sprinkling the water and chanting the sutta. And it said that every time he rounded through and began the third verse, the Yang Kinchi verse of the Ratana Sutta, any evil spirits who were nearby would immediately run. And those who could fly would immediately fly up over the city walls, and those who could not fly would go straight through the walls in order to get out and get away from this powerful chanting that was being done. And because the Buddha and the Sangha and all of this fanfare, uh, good spirits, the gods of the 33 and various devas of high station were very entertained and interested in what was going on. So they came and took up position in Vesali, which caused them to kind of crowd out and push out anybody of a lower rank, which means there's just no way that evil spirits could continue to stay in Vesali at this time. And with this, the mood, the miasma just kind of like dissipates. It shifts. And even though on a physical level, nothing has changed necessarily, immediately it feels like the disaster has been averted. The problems facing basically have been lifted. And this can also be something for us. Like I'm thinking, while we had difficulties here at the monastery because of a troubled individual, you could say there's a kind of bad spirits in the area. People are having trouble meditating. They're having trouble feeling safe. They don't know what's going to happen. There's kind of chaos. And you could call it spirits, or you could just say, oh yeah, these things affect us. They affect us at a mental level and a spiritual level. They are not a thing. The advice is not always, oh, just go back to the breath. Don't pay attention to it. It doesn't mean anything. You'll be fine. Sometimes there actually are conditions that are obstructing our meditation, that are making practice difficult, that are making human life difficult. Yeah. Disease, famine, war. These are things we try to avoid as practitioners because they will make life harder. When life is hard, meditation is hard, practice is hard, study is hard. Yeah. So we try to figure out ways to stabilize our environment, our community. Yeah. And the Ratana Sutta, the idea of the triple gem, which you might have heard of, the Tiratana, is it may have like originated with this metaphor of the Buddha Dhamma Sangha as gems of incomparable beauty, yeah, pristine gems. The Buddha gives the Ratana Sutta, and from that point on, the Buddha Dhamma Sangha are kind of related to as, these symbols of beauty. So in terms of like mental images that invoke the sign of the beautiful, a gem of pristine quality is one of these images that are often invoked. So the Buddha relates to some of the wonderful things about the Buddha Dhamma Sangha and helps call those to mind, which uplifts the people and uplifts the spirits who are paying attention. And when the people are uplifted, the problems, even if they're still there, they seem so much smaller. Yeah, and life becomes manageable again. So with that, let's just step through the sutta and we'll go through it verse by verse. Okay. And again, if you have any particular question that I don't address, feel free to speak up. Okay. So it begins Yani da bhutani samagatani bhumani wa yani wa antalike sabeva bhuta sumana bhavantu atopi sakacha sunantu bhasitang. Tasma hi bhuta nisa meta sabe metan karota manusia pajaya diva charato chaharantiye baling tasma hi ne rakata apamata. And this is a call out to the spirits. And again, you don't need to be able to see devas or have any vision or knowledge of them to be able to put out this call. And just by itself, the recollection of the devas can uplift your heart. But this is calling, and it's just sort of an act of humility to say, if there are any forces out there who have love in their hearts for us human beings here on the dirt, please gather and listen and take heed. Yeah. And that's exactly what's saying. It's calling specifically to devas, earthbound devas and devas in the sky. So those who are closely associated with the human realm, the earthly plane. Yeah. And it calls on them to have love, metta, for mankind. Yeah, reminding them that human beings are constantly praying to them and making offerings, and out of compassion and a recognition of these offerings, because we do stupid things, but we're not all bad. Yeah, have some compassion for us. If there's anything you could do to help out, please consider helping out. And then begins the line where the sutta really gets going, and it's said that this begins the line where it kind of causes the evil spirits to immediately take flight. And in certain versions, there's a short version of this parita, which will begin here and it will end after I think it's 6 verses. So there's a shorter version you might hear from time to time that starts with Yankin Chiwitang. Okay, so it's yang kinchiwitang ida wa harangwa sagesua yang ratanang panitang nano samang ati tathagatena itampi bude ratanang panitang etena sachena suwati hotu. And it says, there's no wealth this life or the next, no sublime gem in the heavens that equals the realized one, the Buddha. And this sublime gem is the Buddha. By this truth, may you be well. And it uses this phrase, Ratanang Panitang. Panita means refined or exquisite. And this word will show up a lot. It's for something of the highest quality. And the Buddha is talking about wealth, yeah. And so on in human terms, there are a lot of forms of wealth. You can have a wealthy estate. You can own lots of land. Back in the Buddhist time, you could own a lot of cows. In modern times, you could have fancy cars or a big wardrobe full of clothes, or you might have a big family. Yeah. But in the terms of the noble ones, the greatest wealth is the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, as these things which give us a path to move through life, which is leading towards a goal that is worthy. Yeah. And the Buddha says whatever wealth you could get in mundane terms could never equal the beauty of having this goal of Nibbana, having a path to that goal. And the Buddha represents this enlightenment itself. Buddha means one who is awake. And the Buddha is just one Buddha of many, one enlightened being of many. And therefore, he reminds us that it is possible in any time and place to attain enlightenment. And it goes on, Kayang wiragang amatang panitang yadajak sakyamuni samakito natena damena samatikinchi itampita me ratanang panitang etena sachena suwati hotu. Ending dispassion, the undying, the sublime, attained by the Sakyan sage immersed in samadhi, there is nothing equal to that Dhamma. So, kayagang, viragang, amatang, panitang. So, amatang is deathless. Viragang is dispassion. Kayang means completion, destruction, ending. Yeah. And the Sakyan sage is obviously the Buddha, who was a prince of the Sakyan clan, who attained enlightenment after perfecting samadhi and then realizing the dependent origination and the noble truths. Yeah, and it's specifically saying that the highest Dhamma is this deathless, this Nibbana. Yeah. And this was still quite early in the dispensation. It's only been 5 years since the Buddha's enlightenment. So we might not see some of the words we're used to that come later once, there have been many suttas given on various topics, and the Buddha had sort of codified his language. But already some of the seeds of the later discourses are being planted. This idea of the deathless and the primacy of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And it goes on, Yang Buddha Seto Pariwana Yisuching Samadhi Manantari Kanya Mahu Samadhi Natena Samona Vijati Idampita Me Ratanang Panitang Etena Sachena Suati Hotu. This is one of the first verses that's particularly obscure to those who don't really know a lot of kind of the deeper nuances, but the purity praised by the Buddha, said to be immersion with immediate knowledge. No equal to that immersion is found. So the Buddha is invoking something which is profound and beautiful. Now, samadhi, even a samadhi to the level of the jhanas, is a mundane attainment. It does not come with immediate knowledge. Samadhi is important in Buddhist practice because it clears the mind of hindrances, delusion, and obstructions. that obscure the truth from us, that make it impossible for us to even look at truth. Yeah, but with samadhi, once our delusions are kind of cleared out, we still have to apply our mind in order to understand something. We have to direct the mind skillfully it's called yoniso manasikara or wise attention in order to have understanding. But there is one form of samadhi which does guarantee knowledge. And the Buddha is invoking this because it's actually the very highest form of samadhi, the pinnacle of samadhi. If one cultivates the jhanas and the formless jhanas to their culmination, they reach what is called the cessation of consciousness. And this is done in full awareness, where consciousness kind of ceases or lapses. And immediately following coming out of this attainment, which you don't necessarily immediately come out of the attainment, because you could stay in that attainment for up to 7 days. But the moment you come out of that attainment, you're guaranteed non-returning at the very least, if not full enlightenment. So the Buddha is invoking a very high and beautiful Dhamma with this phrase. And any beings who are of a spiritual nature may have some degree of samadhi, some degree of mental cultivation. This is one of the conditions which causes beings to be born in higher realms. And if they do, the Buddha is invoking something which is even higher than their experience. Yeah, so getting even the gods floating around listening to the sutta to kind of dream and it imagine something beyond themselves, yeah, and say there's something even more beautiful than the greatest beauty that you have experienced. Yeah. And so you can see we had one verse calling to mind the Buddha and two verses calling to mind the Dhamma. And what follows will be a bunch of verses calling to mind the Sangha. Ye pugala ata satang pasata chatari etani yugani hunti te takineya sugatasa savaka. E te sudinani mahapalani idampi sange ratanang panitang e tena sachena suati hotu. So the eight individuals, the four pairs of the Holy One's disciples. This is the eight kinds of enlightened beings, which are divided into four pairs, those who are on the path to a particular attainment and those who have the fruit of that attainment. Yeah, and the Buddha says they are worthy of donations, and what's given to them is very fruitful. And this is something that we've talked about generosity and giving and the sort of mathematics of merit. Yeah, when you give just to any being, say to an animal, you feed that animal, you help that animal survive, and this is intrinsically meritorious. Yeah. But when you support one who is pure of mind, the merit of that is so much more. And we're used to trying to think of this in like physical terms, like how does this work? So I give a piece of bread to an animal, I get 100 pieces of bread back over the course that plays out. But things don't just ripen in terms of like physical results. They also ripen in terms of verbal results, in terms of reputation and the way that people are perceived. And they also ripen in terms of mental results. Yeah. And when you include those, if you give support and offerings to one who is pure of mind, it can bring you great joy, can bring you a feeling of having done something very effective and something you don't have to regret, something that you can be proud of. And so this is still early in the Sangha, but the Buddha is reminding people of dana, which is often at the beginning of his discourses to put people's minds in a good place, brighten their minds, get them reminded of something that goes beyond religion, yeah? The simple act of generosity is just something that we all understand. It causes joy. It makes life better. It continues, Ye supayuta manasa dalena ni kamino gota sasanami. Te pati pata amatang wikaya ladham buddha nibuting bunjamana. Idam pisange ratanang panitang etena sachena suati hotu. Dedicated to the Buddha's dispensation, strong-minded, free of sense desire, they have attained the goal and plunged into the freedom, the deathlessness, and enjoy the quenching that they've freely gained. And this is, we see this notion of relief that comes from getting free of affliction, free of greed, hatred, and delusion. It's often compared to safety and satisfaction and delight. Yeah, delight being compared to there's a lot of similes, but being full and satisfied and content and safe and happy and all of these things. And it uses this word of quenching, nibuting. Yeah, it's obviously from Nibbana. Yatindakilo patavisitosia chatubiwatehi asampakampiyo tatupamang saparisangwadami yo arya sachani avechapasati edampi sanghe ratanang panitang etena sachena suati hotu. As Indra's pillar rooted in the earth is not shaken by the four winds, I say a true person is like this, who sees the noble truths and has experienced them. So in Indakila, an Indra's pillar is if you have a castle and you have a castle gate, right? So the entrance to the castle is only as sturdy as that gate. And India was not known for its abundance of lumber. So you're going to make a gate that you can actually move. It's going to potentially be something that an elephant could kick its way through. But the one of the ways that they would shore up the city gates would be to have this pillar that they would call a pillar of Indra, Indra being Saka, the king of the 33 gods. And the pillar of Indra is this idea that you would drive this pillar deep into the earth that would hold the gate steady, so it couldn't be knocked down. And you obviously you put it on the inside of the castle, yeah. But this idea of the deep-rooted pillar is being invoked as a symbol to represent one who has attained a vision of the Four Noble Truths. So this is the attainment of stream entry, the seeing of the Four Noble Truths, the understanding of impermanence, the beginning of somebody being independent and certain, free from doubt, yeah, in the path. It's saying that they're unshaken by winds from any direction, just like Indra's pillar. And when you look at it, somebody who has attained freedom from doubt and certainty in the Buddha Dhamma Sangha, certainty in the teaching, a sense of the path, whatever happens in their life, the ups and downs, they have a certain amount of stability, a certain amount of confidence. You're like, yes, that's crazy over there. Yes, I don't like what's going on over there. But nevertheless, the Dhamma is stable. It's not going anywhere. It's not changing. Yeah. Even if you were to hold me down and chop me into little bits, you wouldn't be able to harm my mind. You wouldn't be able to force me to do immoral things that I would regret. And this knowledge, this confidence gives one a stability that can't be found anywhere else in the world. So it's being likened to a pillar that can't be shaken. Ye arya sachane vibhavayanti gambhira panyena sute sitani. Kinchapi te honti pusapamata nate bhavang atamang adiyanti. Edampi sange ratanang panitang etena sachena sawati hotu. Those who fathom the noble truths taught by the one of deep wisdom will not take an eighth life, even if they are extremely negligent. And this is something I really like, and you've heard me quote this a lot. So the idea is that one who attains stream entry has broken through ignorance. They've broken through the ignorance that generates perpetual lives in samsara. If they are extremely negligent, extremely heedless, if they don't do anything proactive, nevertheless, because they've removed the fuel of ignorance, there's only 7 more lifetimes waiting for them. They'll finish their current lifetime, and then 7 more births are possible. And then in the seventh lifetime, there's just no energy left for delusion to perpetuate itself. It will just go out. Yeah. And so this is another form of, it's called the knowledge or the reviewing knowledge of a stream enterer is they can sort of reflect on this, thinking of their attainment and their security, and this can be a source of inspiration for them. Oh yeah, I'm safe. Even if I'm one of little wisdom, even if I fail to have good friends who help keep me on the straight and narrow path, still I won't take an eighth birth here in samsara. I'll get free of the round of rebirths. Sahawasa dasana sampradaya tayasu dhamma chahita bhavanti. Sakaya diti vichikichitancha silapatang wapi adati kinchi. When they attain division, they give up 3 things: personality view, doubt, and any attachment to rites and rituals. And so this is invoking the breaking of the 3 fetters that signifies stream entry. And these are identity view, the view of a permanent self somewhere in the aggregates, doubt, and specifically the fetter of doubt, but also the hindrance of doubt. You might not know things. You might be faced with a lot of uncertainties, but you will not doubt that there is truth. You will not lose this mindfulness of that truth is present, that there are stable principles in the world. And furthermore, you won't try to, you won't have any idea that you can get free of greed, hatred, and delusion through any sorts of rituals. And that sounds funny being nested here in the Ratana Sutta, which is, Ananda's going around, he's sprinkling water and he's chanting, and this is supposed to alleviate the disasters, being faced by the people of Vesali. It sounds like a ritual. It sounds like a religious observance, yeah? And to some degree, it is. But one who has attained stream entry, one who has seen the Four Noble Truths and understood them and become independent in the teaching, no longer needs these external things. They understand that they will attain enlightenment through curtailing their own defilements. There is no external defilement that they need to overcome. Everything is internal. It deals with how they use their mind. And so they'll never believe that by doing something or paying some sort of tithe that they might be able to absolve themselves of sin. They believe in dana and they believe in giving, but they know that it is wholesome in and of itself and it won't erase the wrongdoing that they do. And the most important thing is to not do wrong. They get it. Chatuhapayahi cha vipamuto cha chabitanani abhabakatung. Idampi sange ratanang panitang etena sachena suati hotu. They're freed from the 4 planes of loss and cannot do 6 things. So this is invoking something very powerful that if you don't know, this is very hard to even look up. So the 4 planes of loss are the 3 kinds of realms that you can't be reborn in. So these are the ones below the human existence, that of the animals, that of the hungry ghosts or petas, and that of the niraya beings, the hell beings, those who are supremely afflicted because of immoral actions. Yeah, and not imposed on them from the universe, but imposed on them by the laws of karma. Yeah, they're afflicted mentally, which generates this afflicted life. The fourth is kind of specific to this concept. Usually, we only talk about those three realms, but even in the Deva realm, there is a subset of Devas called Asuras, and these are beings who are they're technically devas. They're technically living in the deva realm, but they're not necessarily moral. They tend to be aggressive. They tend to be manipulative. They tend to be, and I hope one is not going to haunt me because I'm saying this. They're not nice. Yeah, and they were actually kicked out of the Kingdom of the 33 by the devas who are currently there, and they're still a little sore about it, and they're always going to war with the other devas. And it's said, I've never seen this personally, but a stream enter is not going to be born in that realm, even though it is within the deva realm, which is typically considered a wholesome place, because to be there, you have to have some amount of merit, but still be kind of a coarse and aggressive and not necessarily nice individual. Good examples of this are like CEOs of major corporations. Yeah, we understand that they have a lot of power, they have a lot of wealth, they have a lot of influence, and they're not necessarily good people. You can have this in samsara. Yeah, you can have somebody who's receiving the benefits of previous good actions, but they're not doing anything to make future good fruits. Yeah, and the asuras kind of represent that. And the six things that an enlightened being cannot do. There are five irredeemable kamas, and that is to kill your mother, to kill your father, to kill an arahant, to shed the blood of a Buddha, or to cause a schism in a united sangha. Um, and obviously, the Buddha not being around, only three of those are possible for people in the modern day. Well, I guess yeah, no, you could kill an Arahant if you found one. Um, and then the sixth one being that you will not take another teacher other than the Buddha as your root teacher. So this is just something that enlightened beings just don't do. It's sort of, is it that they can't do it? Or is it that they don't do it? It's somewhere in between. They don't have the capacity to do these actions. Yeah. You need a very particular kind of mind state in order to be able to do these things. And an enlightened being has abandoned those mind states. There's nothing, no fertile ground for those mind states to arise. And so they will never commit those actions. Kinchapi kamang karoti papakang kayena wacha urachetasawa. Ababa sotasa patichadaya abapata ditapadasuta. Edampi sange ratanang panitang etena sachena suwati hotu. Even if they do a bad deed by body, speech, or mind, they are unable to conceal it. They say this inability applies to one who has seen the truth. And this is another sublime quality of enlightened beings who have attained stream entry and beyond, is that when they do something wrong, they don't have any idea that they could ever keep it secret. Now, they don't necessarily go out on the street corner and tell everybody who comes by, I did this, I did this, I did this, I'm a sinner, punish me. But they do recognize it as a fault. They vow to do better in the future and to make amends as possible. And yeah, they set themselves on the course to try not to make that mistake again. And this is a wonderful quality of the Sangha, the enlightened beings. Yeah, and these are the verses calling to mind the Sangha. And then we get two verses that refer to the Buddha again. Unapagumbe yata pusitage gimhanamase patamasming gimhe tatupamang dhamma warang adesye nibbanagaming paramang hitaya idampi Buddhe ratanang panitang etena sachena suwati hotu. Waro waranyu wardo waraharo anutaro dhamma warang adesye idampi Buddhe ratanang panitang etena sachena suwati hotu. Like a tall forest tree crowned with flowers in the first month of summer, that's how he taught the superb Dhamma, leading to extinguishment, the ultimate benefits. The superb knower of the superb, giver of the superb, bringer of the superb, taught the superb Dhamma supreme. This sublime gem is the Buddha. By this truth may you be well. And this is using the image of, the Buddha taught the Dhamma in the month of May. He was born in the month of May. He passed away in the month of May. And this is a time when it's a bit unseasonal for the sal trees which have very beautiful and very fragrant blossoms to bloom. But during these times, these trees were said to have sprung into bloom out of season. Yeah, I don't really understand technically. Maybe somebody knows these trees, but I think it's before that because I think summer in India begins in like February because the rainy season begins in June or sometimes the beginning of July. Yeah, so usually the hot season is fully underway by May, but the trees suddenly bloomed. And this is calling to this image to mind, yeah, that when the Dhamma is present, when the Buddha is present, when the Dhamma teaching is being given, it's like things kind of bloom and become bright and beautiful and fragrant. The o kinang puranang nawati sangbawang viratachita yatike bawasming te kina bija abiruli chanda nipanti dira yatayang patipo idampi sange ratanang penitang etena sachena suati hotu. The old is ended, nothing new is produced. Their minds have no desire for future rebirth. Withered are the seeds, there's no desire for growth. Those attentive ones are extinguished just like a lamp. This sublime gem is the Sangha. By this truth may you be well. Now, in temples and during house blessings, during any sort of purification ceremony, where this is done in Theravada countries, what tends to happen is that at the beginning of chanting the sutta, or at the beginning of chanting paritas, one of the monks who is present will light a candle. And at the speaking of this final verse here, the monk extinguishes the candle, and this is meant to be a symbol for the attaining of nibbana. And this idea, people are often confused, like, well, what is it? What is it you're seeking? Like, you don't want rebirth, but you're trying to destroy yourself. I don't get it. And it's a higher understanding of the cause of suffering, how it's produced, it's an effect, and it has the desire for rebirth as a cause. If you're not born, then you don't grow old and sick and die. These is a cause and effect relationship. So it's not so much that you're seeking destruction, it's that you just abandon the desire for more. You desire the desire for rebirth and to keep going. By letting that go, you attain a freedom from the burning, the passion, which is symbolized by the burning of the candle flame, yeah? And so when that flame is flicked out, or sometimes it's you'll have a bowl of water and it's sort of dipped into the bowl of water so that it goes out. This is symbolizing that your craving is what has gone out. You don't necessarily stop. All of the things that are in motion are still in motion in terms of your life, but your craving and the burning, the suffering that comes from that is now fully extinguished. And just like a candle that's been dipped into water and then pulled out, it's not going to spontaneously burst back into flame. You can leave it out as long as you want and it will stay unlit. And so it is with the mind of an enlightened being. There is no cause, no seed for them to again generate craving. It is out permanently. And the sutta then finalizes with three verses, a refrain. It says, whatever beings have gathered here on the ground or in the sky, the realized one, the Tathagata, is honored by gods and humans. We bow to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. By this may you be safe. Mhm. So this is the Ratana Sutta. Now, having heard some of this, having some background, I hope that you will encounter this in your life as a wonderful sutta. And when you hear it chanting, you can be like, wait, I know that. I know that. And hopefully some of these images will start to come back to you, even if you don't necessarily know the Pali. You'll know what it's trying to bring you to recollect. Yeah. And you know the specific effect that that is said to have. Yeah. By brightening our minds, we brighten our reality. By freeing ourselves from afflictive patterns it's disease, death, famine, war. These things don't come out of nowhere. Yeah. There's usually you can look and you can see that there's a cause, and usually you can see that the cause has been in greed, hatred, and delusion. Yeah, so when you uplift your mind, when you bring wholesome things to mind, you are extinguishing the causes which led to your disaster. You might not immediately alleviate the disaster, but you've given yourself freedom from the causes, and you can know that when the causes are not present, the disaster itself will abate in time. Yeah. And so yeah, I hope this is of some interest, and I hope you have some opportunity to chant this sutta from time to time with renewed vigor. And yes, if you feel a sudden stirring of compassion for your fellow beings in your town or your state or your country or in the world, in any country where there are many afflicted people in the world today, even with all of the amazing advances we've made in medicine and communication and philosophy and yeah, still a lot of bad things going on in the world. So there's never a wrong time to invoke the sutta. And if you're not able to draw in all of the devas to give you a hand. At the very least, you have uplifted your mind to the level of the devas, and that makes it a worthy accomplishment, yeah, worth the time it takes to chant. So I offer this for your reflection tonight. May this be of benefit to you and to all beings on this supposed night.